Hello and welcome. Amid escalating tensions, there are now reports that several US fighter jets have been shot down. That's happened in Kuwait, and this is sharply escalated tensions. There are no confirmed reports. However, Kuwait has in fact put out a release that indicates that some jets have been shot down. There was a visual of one jet, but it was said to have been shot down due to a friendly fire. But as you can see, tensions are on the rise in Middle East after US and Israel conducted those strikes inside Iran, and Iran has retaliated. So while recent military operations appear aimed at degrading Iran's capabilities and reinforcing deterrence, rather than explicitly pursuing regime change, some would say, but others would argue that entire process is done to bring about a regime change. The downing of multiple jets has, however, signals a dangerous phase of direct engagement. You can see on those visuals, that's the school which was targeted in Iran, and there are also now visuals coming from Israel where residential complexes have been hit. This is Burj Khalifa in the UAE, the tallest building of the world, which also there was explosions in its vicinity, and those are the skies of the Middle East. You can see that they are lit up with those missiles that have been fired from multiple directions. Iran has really been firing those missiles and drones at multiple countries, including UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and other places, all those places which have a US military installation. So where is this war going? Is it all about a regime change, or there is more to it? And is there an end game that is in sight once the war was started by America and Israel? And how, what are its implications for India? Remember, Prime Minister Modi has also spoken about it today. Let's introduce our guests today on the show. Let's introduce our panel. We got joined by an eminent panel. We're joined by General Dhruv Katoch. Welcome to Mojo Story, sir. And we're also joined by Ambassador Dilip Sinha. If I may start with you, General Saab, in the morning we saw those visuals of a jet that was shot down in Kuwait, and it was said that it's been shot down due to a friendly fire. But now there are reports that multiple jets, American jets, have been shot down, and obviously all those would not have been shot down due to friendly fires. You can see on that visual that one of the jets that's coming falling down. How do you see the war going now? It's been 2 days. It seems to be escalating. What is the way that you're looking the things are heading on?
Regarding the jets falling down, yes, Kuwait has actually, their government spokesperson has said that a number of jets. He hasn't said how many, but it is a number of jets have dropped, and he has also stated that the pilots are safe. Now, obviously, these jets have been shot down by anti-aircraft fire or by missiles, and I don't call this a provocation. I think that is self-defense. So if somebody is attacking you, you got the full right to defend yourself. So this is war as it is progressing. That is one. Number two, escalation. The escalation started from the very first day. So I don't think there's any act which can take place which will say that the matter is escalating. Aircraft will be attacked, ships will be attacked, hotels, everything is on the cards. Iran has made it very clear that there are no further red lines. After Khomeini was killed, they made it very clear there are no red lines, they will do what they have to do. Number three, I think as far as the Revolutionary Guards are concerned, because that is the prime instrument, it is not so much the Iranian army as it is the IRGC. Now, the IRGC, I believe, these are not confirmed reports, but there are reports emanating that there are 31 battalions, and all of them have been told that you can carry out independent operations, which I think is a very, very dangerous trend. Giving such power to independent commanders to do what they please is really heading for disaster. Now, where is it heading? In my view, it cannot last more than, I will place it at the top level about 2 weeks. And my assessment for 2 weeks is not due to the ground situation. It is the very fact that Iran is isolated. It doesn't have the capacity to import weapon systems from either China or Russia. The supply routes are restricted. Aerial supply will not work. By sea, they cannot come. The land route is the northern route. I think it'll be very, very difficult to get it from there. So their Iranian supplies will run out. They don't have an unlimited supply of weapons, and as it starts running out, I think then we'll be looking towards peace talks. But till then, I think these hostilities will carry on, and as Iran is not in a position really to target American assets, because they have also moved out to hotels, etc., etc. Uh, I think they will be targeting a very large portion of the civil infrastructure of the Gulf countries, and that will I think that is going to be a very, very dangerous thing for the people living there. Zafar.
Absolutely. And we saw that Aramco oil refinery was targeted today. There were videos that it was hit. Either that missile was intercepted and debris fell on that, or it was directly targeted. And we've seen the airports which were targeted in Middle East. Uh, Dilip Sinha sir, do you think that this time Iran has adopted a different sort of a policy? They are going all out. They are attacking infrastructure in the Gulf countries so that these Gulf countries actually force America to step back. Could that be the reason that infrastructure, civilian infrastructure, airport, oil refineries, hotels have been targeted? Uh, although these are not places which have American troops there, but it has not really made that distinction. That's the oil refinery that I was talking about.
Has not discriminated between military and civilian targets. They are targeting all these places. Now, I'm not sure if this is necessarily part of a coordinated or well thought out strategy. We must remember that the top leadership of Iran has been decimated in one attack on Khamenei and his safe house. So there must be a lot of a degree of chaos within the decision making process in Iran. Therefore, it is possible that they are firing wherever they can to cause whatever damage they can. But as General Saab said, that we must remember that Iran has become isolated, and one of the reasons why it is isolated today is that it has been targeting these soft targets in the Arab countries, as a result of which they have started now threatening Iran. Qatar has said that if Iran targets any of its centers, then it may retaliate, and it has stopped engaging with Iran, although at one time Qatar was a very close friend of Iran. So this strategy of Iran, whether a coordinated strategy or a random strategy of hitting at civilian targets, is certainly isolating Iran further.
Yeah. And while on one hand it's isolating Iran further, but Americans are also taking casualties. They are also taking hits. And in fact, President Trump made that statement. He said that three soldiers, American soldiers, have died, many others are wounded, and he sort of cautioned that there could be more casualties. If we can have that soundbite up before we go further.
Achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible.
Right. So he's clearly indicating that this war is ongoing. But is there any end game? Do you think that Americans have a clear objective? Initially, we remember a few months ago, the objective was to destroy Iranian bases where from they thought that they are making those nuclear weapons, and they did that. But today it seems that the objective is regime change. But that may not be possible because Iran is not Venezuela. It has a layered system. It may not be possible to carry out a regime change just by, removing Khamenei from the picture. Ambassador Dilip Sinha, this may be a long drawn affair now. Do you think that Americans have an end objective, or they will exhaust Iran and then perhaps bring them to the negotiating table and have a regime of their liking there in place in Iran?
Well, the objective of this in attack was clearly regime change,
Yeah,
because in June last year, President Trump had declared that he had obliterated Iran's nuclear capacity. Now, obliterate
yeah,
means uh, destroyed completely.
yeah.
So, if at all a nuclear program has been resurrected by Iran, it would be in a very nascent or elementary stage at the moment. Now, the
Mm.
attack that took place, in which they killed the top leadership of Iran, was an opportunity that Israel and the Americans seized on to destroy the top leadership. And if you look at the speech of President Trump that night at 2:30 that he released, um, he appealed to the Iranians to rise and said, "This is your opportunity to rise against your regime." So the aim of the attack was to kill the top leadership and then hope that the Iranian people would rise against the regime. Now that hope has been so far belied. The people have not risen against the regime, and the regime has been able to come together. They have been able to get a process in which a supreme leader, at least a replacement of the supreme leader, has been elected. The president seems to be there, and there are other those people who have survived, the foreign minister, Mr. Larijani, etc. So they have activated the government. So to that extent, it appears that the American immediate strategy has not been achieved. Now they can only hope that if the war continues for, let's say, another week or 10 days or 2 weeks, as General Saab said, then Iran's capacity to retaliate will be destroyed, and then Iran will be forced to come to the negotiating table.
Right. And General Katoj, rather than forcing a regime change in Iran, hasn't it gone the other way around? Because Khamenei, many has said that he's become a martyr now. He's become more dangerous for America in his death rather than when he was alive, because it has brought together the Iranians. It has, rather than having them look for a regime change, it has brought about a wave of sympathy and brought them together in favor of Khamenei.
Actually, I don't think that may be totally correct. Within Iran, there is a very large body of opinion which doesn't want, which is not enamored with the Ayatollahs. They want a regime change, but the
Right.
problem is slightly different. There are two. I will put there two basic groups. One
Yeah.
is a group which is let me call it the IRGC, which is totally aligned with the Ayatollah government, and their loyalty is to the Ayatollah. So the IRGC is not the Iranian army. It is really I will say the bodyguards or the protection force of the Ayatollah, and they are the strongest force today in Iran. The other is a very vast public opinion which is divided. Now, in the normal course of events, actually, this public opinion was going against the Ayatollah. But now, as you very correctly said, because they are attacked, they have changed. But I have a feeling that the bigger problem is not that they have been attacked and they have changed their view. They don't have an inherent leader amongst them who can actually rise up and say, let us do this. Now, who are they going to talk to? Who is the person who will become the leader? There is a leadership vacuum in the civil population. And in the present government, if there is somebody there, then he has to speak up. So there is the IRGC and the Ayatollah group. They have a leadership. Though the Khamenei has been killed and the others have been killed, but there is a second rung and there's a third rung. There is somebody. There is some form of leadership, though it is weak. The other party doesn't have the leadership at all. I
Right.
think if a leadership emerges and there is still time, then a government can be formed. Lastly, there is talk of the Shah of Iran. His son is there in
Yes,
the United
yes.
States. He is the wrong person. He will not be accepted by anybody in Iran. So if the Americans think of thrusting him there, it will not work. This leadership has to come from within Iran. Whichever way we look at it, the regime change can take place. But who comes in has to be what the people of Iran decide, whether good or bad. It has to be theirs.
But General Saab, can a regime change actually take place without boots on the ground? When regime change took place in Iraq, it was Americans who invaded that country, and they, took out Saddam Hussein from that tunnel or in that shell where he was hiding. But there were boots on the ground. Here, there are no boots on the ground because Iran is a big country. It has a bigger population. It may not be that easy to bring about a regime change without boots on the ground, either of America or Israel.
I think the Americans are quite certain they are not going to put boots on the ground. If a regime change takes place, it has to be indigenous. And we'll see as to how that works out. If it comes about, that is the way it will be. It will not come about in any other way. There is no way in which the Americans can put boots on the ground. They are going to they will be in for very serious trouble. And then we are looking at 50,000 to 100,000 troops coming in. So that, in my view, is out of the question. It won't work.
Right.
I think they will support groups within Iran who wish to have a different form of government. Uh, it is going to be a very, very messy affair. Iran is not the same Iran as what you had seen even 6 months earlier. It is going to be different. There will be chaos there. And I'm afraid the people are in for a very rough time in the near future. But this war has to end. As a military man, I know that the capacity to wage war of the Iranians is limited. And beyond a certain stage, what will the Israelis bomb? You hit at the military targets disperse, then the Israelis and the Americans aren't going to hit the civilian targets. So at some point of time, both the sides will have to stop firing at each other. The Iranians because they don't have the weapons, and the Americans and the Americans and Israelis because they aren't worthwhile targets to fire at. Say 2 weeks, let's see what happens then. There will be some sort of a change.
Right.
At least the firing will stop. Then who takes over, we will see. Can the army come in? I think that's another option. Can the army come in? Because the army is different
Yes.
to the IRGC.
Yeah.
So at this point of time, I think it's very difficult to say what will happen. Zafar.
Ambassador Sinha, the point is, suppose there is no regime change, then it will be a big, loss of face for Trump, because if Iranians are able to hold on to the regime, even after losing the war, even after Ayatollah not being knocked off, they're still able to have this regime in place. What will Americans achieve at the end of the day?
Well, if the Iranians run out of weapons and they stop firing at all kinds of soft targets in the countries around, then Trump will claim victory. It will be a short victory until such time as Iran revives itself. But he'll certainly claim victory that now there's peace because Iran is no longer capable of hitting anybody. Now, what happens inside Iran is a completely different story, because whether the regime is able to survive, whether there's chaos, we have seen the kind of chaos that has happened, that has been created by invasions in Iraq and Afghanistan, Libya, etc. That kind of a situation may prevail, or the current leadership that is there in place right now, Mr. Arafi and Pezeshkian and the others, if they decide that it is in the best interest of the people to start talking, then there is possibility of dialogue. Now, that would be very difficult because it would be very humiliating for the Iranians to ask for peace. But then that is one way in which there can be forward movement, because you must remember that the Arab Gulf countries were not in favor of this attack. They were, in fact, appealing to the Americans before not to use their bases, not to use their airspace for the invasion. So they have got into it very reluctantly. And if the attacks on them stop, then there is a possibility that the peace move can emerge from them. And then there are others who can put pressure upon the Americans to get down to the negotiating table.
Right. So next couple of weeks are crucial, General Katouj, or it is easy to start the war, but you never know when it's going to end and in which form. But the first couple of weeks are going to be very crucial. If Iran exhausts all its missiles and drones, then they have nothing to fire with, then obviously this will automatically come to an end. Or some people are saying that Iran is also sending in those cheap drones so that Americans and Israelis, are exhausted of all the weapons that are used to block those missiles and drones, and then they would send another round of weapons which are more lethal.
See, this strategy will continue to play out. I mean, we saw what happened in Operation Sindoor, where Pakistan sent in their drones, and then 2 days later they followed up with missiles, but we intercepted all of them. Now here, I think the both the interception capability of Israel is very, very strong, and up to 92, I think about 90 odd % they have actually intercepted. But the point is, there is no such thing as 100% interception, which is why very serious casualties have taken place in Jerusalem today.
Yeah.
In the Aramco, you talked of Aramco, they actually sent in 3 drones. 2 were shot down, 1 actually landed, which caused a minor fire and which has been put down. But the
Yeah.
point was they have hit. Uh, this sort of warfare will go on, but even how many drones can you produce? Their factories have been hit. The manufacturing capabilities also diminished very greatly, and their army is being targeted on a daily basis. So in those circumstances, to say that they will continue getting their armaments when the leadership is also getting decimated is not something which is very easy to do. Those things are done in peacetime when you actually accumulate all your stuff. So there are tremendous challenges. I don't think Iran is in a position to continue the war after its reserves are depleted. To say that they will be able to manufacture more or China will give it to them, I have very serious reservations about that. So in my view, I've given it about 2 weeks. Is at the outer edge. They are going to have challenges, and then the talks may start. And as Ambassador Sinha said, which I totally agree with, is that the initiative will come from the Gulf countries, and because the Gulf countries will say, "Let's talk peace," both sides actually may agree without a loss of face on either side. Now, that is a very, very workable option, and perhaps that may come about much sooner than we think. It may come about within the next week itself. But on their own, I agree with the ambassador again. For the Iranians to ask for peace talks, that is going to be a very, it's a question of face. And all of us in the Asia, we're very conscious of that face angle.
Yeah.
And the Americans obviously are not going to ask for it. The Americans have told them, come and talk, we'll talk to you anytime. So the American offer to talks is open. The Iranian offer is, the Iranians are not very keen. But
Yes.
if the Gulf countries put pressure, then I think there's a possibility.
Right. And Ambassador Sinha, how will India be looking at this entire situation that's developing? It's a tough situation that is emerging in Middle East. There is a war. There's involvement of so many countries. Prime Minister Modi was in Israel just 2 days before the strikes took place, and he's also spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu. In fact, he's also given a soundbite and said, given his thoughts about the situation, that India believes in peace and dialogue. Let's first hear that soundbite before Ambassador Sinha can respond to our question.
पश्चिम एशिया की वर्तमान स्थिति हमारे लिए गहरी चिंता का विषय है। भारत डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी के माध्यम से सभी विवादों का समाधान का समर्थन करता है। इस क्षेत्र में मौजूद सभी भारतीय नागरिकों की सुरक्षा के लिए हम सभी देशों के साथ मिलकर काम करते रहेंगे।
Right. So you heard it, Ambassador Sinha. How will India be looking at the developing situation in Middle East?
With great concern. The last thing we want in that region is war. We have a large diaspora. It's a major export market, a source of our oil. Any disturbance there of any kind affects all these three factors, and a war affects everybody. So we definitely want that the war stops, at least the firing that is coming in, this random firing of missiles at civilian targets in the Gulf countries, that must come to an end. And of course, a longer term solution through dialogue would be what we would want.
Right. And General Dhruv Katoj, the point is that nobody knows what's going to happen. We can all make intelligent guesses that this is what's going to happen. It may continue for a couple of weeks, but it's a war. Nothing can be said with certainty. The fact is that, as Ambassador Saab was saying, there's so many Indians are in these Gulf countries. It is a source of fuel, source of oil. India has very good relations with Israel. It's a tightrope walk. So India is must be very looking at the situation very carefully right now.
You'll be
Uh,
surprised that over the last decade, the way our relationships have improved with the entire Arab world and also with Israel, which in a sense you can say it's a contradiction in terms, but the foreign policy has been, in my view, one of the greatest successes of the government over the last decade. That is one. But when you're talking about the diaspora problem, I don't think is going to be very serious, very frankly, because that war is not going to take place on those people. In my view, the entire civil population is going to be safe. The bigger problem is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz.
yeah,
That is going to impact each one of us right now. With the energy prices shooting up, if petrol today in the market is 100 rupees a liter, what happens if it jumps to 200 rupees? And even then, what happens if it's not available? You see, availability also, then we may find a situation in India that fuel is getting rationed. That is going to be a very, very serious problem. But the actual physical welfare of our people there, I mean, their security, I don't think that is going to be a matter of concern. Those are not areas which are going to be targeted. I'm quite certain. They are not going to be targeted. But let us say Aramco is targeted, and then the oil fields are targeted of Iran, and the entire oil supply is in flames. That means the supply reduces to zero or to a very low trickle. That is going to be a very serious energy crisis across the world. India and China will be the most seriously impacted. I think that is something which we need to have of very, very great concern, including, of course, the people. I'm not trying to deny that, but this is really the major concern. And that is why we have to put in all our effort, along with the others, to see that this war stops as soon as possible and that the energy supplies are not disrupted.
and purely from the military point of view, do you think they can hold on to this blockade of the strait for long? Because at the moment they are holding on, but given the fact that they are they are this America, this Israel, there are other countries in the region, they would push back and they would force Iran to retreat. Do
No,
you think Iran can hold it on?
no. You see, this is a very narrow strait. Blocking it, you knock out one or two ships there, nobody can sail. This is something which is going to be very difficult. It's a very high risk operation, and you don't require hundreds of missiles for that. You just have to knock out one ship. That's
Yeah.
it. You hit one ship, all the others will stop because who's going to take that risk of coming? And it's a very long area to cover. So you unless if the Americans want to stop it or the others, then you got to put troops on the ground. You got to sanitize the whole area. In my view, it's an impossible task. It can't be done. So
Correct.
we need peace to ensure that the waterways remain open. Otherwise, there will be a challenge. Especially our biggest threat, and I will say, including China, is going to be this: if the routes stop, the energy prices that will skyrocket, and it will be unbelievable how high they can go.
Right. Ambassador Sinha, last word to you before we wrap up.
This invasion has brought about two very interesting developments. One is that NATO, which had got into all kinds of problems, has
Yeah.
once again showing signs of reuniting.
Right.
Britain has offered its bases. France, Germany, they've all offered support. So that fissure within NATO seems to be healing, but for how long we don't know, because there will be pressure from them on the US to stop this war. And the other is the coming together of the Arab countries against Iran, including countries like Qatar, which has genuinely isolated Iran in this whole region, which is not good for Iran's long-term interests. It's something that Iran should have kept in mind, that it should have confined the war to its with Iran, with Israel and the US, rather than bringing in the Gulf countries into the picture. But this is the way things are working out right now. It is certainly a very difficult situation, and the world has to come together to try and bring this war to an end.
Yeah, indeed, it's very important to bring this war to an end. And there's so many countries it's involved, it's spreading to other regions, and it will impact not just the neighborhood but the entire world. Thanks so much, Ambassador Dilip Sinha and Major General Dhruv Katosia, for joining us today and for sharing your views. And thanks to our viewers for watching the Mojo story. Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.